This is the e-learning podcast, episode number 32.
We're really trying to revolutionize how education is done here in Latin America. Our flagship product is our master's in business and technology. Think sort of an MBA with a more tech-focused twist. And then we do two other really exciting things. We do corporate training programs, and this fall we launched a program called Compass, which is for 18 to 22-year-olds. It's a gap year program where we're trying to help the students figure out where they might want to take their careers and give them the career skills to go along with it.
Welcome to the e-learning podcast from lmspulse.com. My name is Stephen Laddick, and I'm the director at LMS Pulse. My guest for today is Kristin Barrett. Born and raised in Chicago, Kristin and her family transitioned to Mexico to oversee the operations of an MBA and leadership school. Before her key role at Collective Academy, Kristin built a tenured career in the meeting point of innovation and education. Now, she co-heads an ambitious plan to forge Mexico's next generation of leaders by providing critical needs and helping accelerate their success. In this surprisingly relevant conversation, we talk about why the pandemic and all the struggles it brought for teachers was a real boon for a lot of urban Latin American students, many of which experienced online learning for the first time. We also talk about lifelong learning, but from a perspective of inclusion, and why Kristin decided to expand from an MBA into Compass, a pre-university program that starts nurturing business and leadership skills. We also talk about why teenagers, regardless of their eventual calling, can benefit from leadership, resilience, organizational, and even IT and more technical skills. We also talk about the interesting new ways in which Collective Academy is connecting talented young people with experts and industry leaders, and how connecting with young thinkers can be a powerful tool to address uncertainty and change in creative ways. Finally, we talk about why the pandemic bolstered a revolution in leadership education across the continent, but why we need to continue to explore ways to clear the gaps and promote the creation of valuable business models to anybody who wants it. But before we get started, a quick word from our sponsors.
The e-learning podcast is sponsored by the e-learning Success Summit. Learn from more than 40 experts how to teach, work, and learn online without being overwhelmed. Get your free ticket to the summit at elearningsuccesssummit.com. And lmspulse.com, your best source for news, information, and resources for e-learning professionals for more than 10 years. Get our free roundup of the week's top news at lmspulse.com.
Hello, Kristin. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Stephen. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks so much.
Where do we find you sitting today?
Today, I am in Mexico City, in a neighborhood called Polanco.
All right. Okay. We can't lie to everybody. I'm actually sitting in Polanco as well too. People know in the show here that we kind of live in different parts of the world. We've just recently moved here. I'm excited. We're actually only a few blocks away from each other. So now we'll have to have a coffee sometimes. Fantastic.
For sure.
You are the COO and Director of Enterprise Learning for an organization called Collective Academy down here in Latin America. Before let's start with, just tell us, what is Collective Academy? What's your goals? Who do you serve? What's your purpose?
So Collective Academy is what we call a challenger university for Latin America. We're based in Mexico City, but we're really trying to revolutionize how education is done here in Latin America. Our flagship product is our master's in business and technology. Think sort of an MBA with a more tech-focused twist. And then we do two other really exciting things. We do corporate training programs, and this fall we launched a program called Compass, which is for 18 to 22-year-olds. It's a gap year program where we're trying to help the students figure out where they might want to take their careers and give them the career skills to go along with it.
How does that, before we start diving into that context, because there's just, you just threw so much meat on the table. How's your COVID been? You were already online, you were already delivering online only before COVID. Have you just sort of, drinking from a fire hose, it's just gone up through the roof, or what's that been like?
It's a great question. So, for me personally, I joined the team about 2 weeks before COVID really hit Mexico. So, just a
Pretty
little bit of
small
a nod
person
to
for
my
you.
student start of a job. But, I've been really lucky. We have an amazing team. And so 2 weeks in, we have been running an online MBA for a little while, or MBT for a little while. The thing is, most of our classes are actually still in person. So we weren't entirely remote. And so basically in the course of 4 days, we decided that we wanted to be at the leading edge of decision making on this, and that it was really important for us to keep our students secure. So we actually took everyone online in 4 days, and we were super grateful to the experience that we had through our online MBT. And so we were able to do it. And to be honest, it's been really interesting. For some of our students, I actually think they've been shocked by how much they like being online. In a city like Mexico City, particularly, probably less for our students in Monterrey, traffic is a big issue. So not spending an hour or two extra commuting for those 2 nights a week that they're in class was really, I think, a win. But for others, obviously, they'd like to be back in person. But yeah, we've continued to be in touch with our students. We've done formal surveys and things like that. And until people feel really safe to go back, we don't want to be the first ones to go back, to be perfectly honest. We just don't think it's super necessary. We have done a ton of training of our instructors to have great classes online, not just do sort of a webinar. That's not how we operate. And so we've been really fortunate thus far to take it as far as we can online, and we'll continue to be online probably at least through the end of this year, possibly longer. But one of the things that's really interesting being a graduate school with the masters is that we bring together people from a lot of different corporations. Mm-hmm. Sure. So we really do worry particularly about being a hub for infection. That if COVID is in one company that's in person, that one of those people comes to class, suddenly we could be spreading it to 15 other companies. And so it's just kind of like having the pods for school, for school kids. It's just really tough. We just feel a different sense of responsibility in all of this.
Super cool. All right, but thanks for that. That was a complete answer about not only your adaptation to it, but the decision making behind it. I really appreciate hearing like, look, we can do this. We're delivering, and our teachers are being successful. Our students are giving us positive feedback. We're going to wait. We're going to make a decision. Until we have a better solution for the COVID situation. That's great.
Yeah. And we've talked about all the precautions, but sure. None are perfect. I don't know if it's better to go from Zoom to being in a giant classroom where everyone's at least 6 feet apart from each other and super awkward. Like, I'm not sure that's a better experience than.
Right. Exactly. I mean, is that really a social experience? Is that really? It's just an artificial human experience, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So, what are the other challenges? I mean, you Collective Academy was put together because there's a need in the market. Clearly, you said you're serving Latin America in a particular way. What are the challenges that you see among students and universities in higher ed today? Like, what are those particular pieces, or does your pedagogy or your course material address?
For sure. So I think, for one thing that we really think about a lot is that jobs are changing really, really rapidly. And so in order to be prepared for that, you need to figure out what you need to learn and how to learn it. And so often it's very difficult to even sort of measure your progress towards your learning goals. And your courses and your programs could be super costly. You can take on a lot of student debt or other things in order to pay them or ask your family for a lot of help. And really in this 21st century, people need to reinvent themselves more frequently than ever before. And so I think a few things that are a little bit different for us is we really consider ourselves a community of lifelong learners. I think our alumni community is a lot closer than your average Latin American university alumni group. We teach things like learning how to learn. Those are real priorities for us.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's not.
Let me dig a little deeper right there. So with learning how to learn, is that a cultural piece? Why would that be necessary? Is it because you find that many people come from sort of the rote learning kind of lecture, here's what you got? Is that kind of?
Yes, that's definitely part of it. I think it's also just shift in mindset. How do you figure out how to put somebody in a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset? How do you figure out how to teach somebody that they can continue to learn, that they're not at a stagnant point? And so, we're really focused on a lot of different leadership skills, that so not only are our students learning these skills, our master students, but then they're taking them to lead their teams more effectively. So questions like, how do you become a more adaptable person? How do you become more resilient? And so, as we think about all of these, we want to have our students think with frameworks, think about different tools that might apply in different situations they're in. But really learn a lifelong set of career and professional skills. And that really actually begins with learning. So it's one of the first topics that we talk about, knowing yourself and learn how to learn.
Do you find that other universities, especially other graduate programs, are absorbing this as well? Do you find competitors in Latin America, especially in the Mexico market, or is this something where you're really like sort of distinctive, standout, and like you got to make a choice to kind of go in this different system if you're a student?
I think our students are definitely making a choice to come with us. We tend to attract a lot of innovators. They might have their own startup. They might be leading innovation for a corporation. They might want to make a shift to tech or to entrepreneurship in their careers. And so I think that's probably where we stand out the most. And so, we attract these innovators who we call them game changers.
Okay.
And so, they're really looking at things a little bit differently, and they're open to the fact that, like, we're a 5-year-old university. That's not exactly a long established old stalwart in the market, right?
Sure, absolutely.
But they get it. I mean, they think that our students really believe in the idea that the information is out there. You need to figure out how to ask the right questions, and that's the core of so much of what we teach.
Are most of your students coming kind of through a traditional student career path, like sort of they come from a bachelor's degree and then they're jumping into your master's program? Or are you finding that most of them are kind of, either maybe early career, mid-career professionals are like, look, I need to level up and change my path? Like, where do you find that?
They're mainly coming in actually after having worked a few years. We have sort of a 2-year requirement that they have to have worked at least 2 years before coming in. So, we want experienced professionals. To be perfectly honest, in a master's in business, and I have an MBA from University of Chicago, it completely changes the classroom discussion. And when you're actually applying each one of these skills to what you do day to day, and that's part of our goal too, is that every time somebody leaves class, that they can go out the next day and actually apply to their team. They can lead more effectively. They can make a better business plan for a new product or service. They can really just do things differently in their day-to-day job based on what they learned in class the night before.
You kind of stole my thunder. My next question was, are most people they're working and school at the same time? So
yeah, they're almost all working full time, which I really admire students.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Mexico in particular works really long hours. I think as an American in Mexico, I really grew to appreciate and respect that, but also worry about it a little, obviously. But I think, one of the things that we see out of that is that our students, they're working and then they're coming to class from 7 to 9:30 Tuesday and Thursday nights. So it's no joke what they're taking on. It's 18 months. And so they do a phenomenal job. And at the end of the day, I think they should be extraordinarily proud of what they accomplished.
What about the mindset around social enterprise, social, we've noticed, through a lot of the higher education sort of sector globally, that many students that are coming in, many learners that are coming in saying, look, I work for this company. I don't just want a paycheck. I need to have more is more purpose driven, kind of impact, leadership, these kinds of things? Are you seeing a lot of that here in Mexico as well?
For sure. I mean, I think that's a big part of when you talk to our team, particularly at a personal level, why each one of us does what we do. I mean, ultimately, I think we believe that education is a really critical part of sort of the economic future of the region. And so, one of the reasons I think we commit as much as we do to the innovators is that we believe that they're creating new jobs and they're creating good jobs. And so it's something that we see huge potential in, and we're really excited about being part of sort of this tech wave, this entrepreneurial wave within Latin America.
So you guys have adapted clearly seamlessly to this sort of remote context. Okay, hey, take the compliment.
I don't think anybody's been seamless in this. I don't want to put that face on.
Okay, so things are adapting, and you're adapting as well. How you are connected to a lot of businesses in Latin America, Mexico. We've seen great successes in this COVID crisis, right? Over the last 8 months, we've seen massive fails, right? Companies that just couldn't respond, their workers aren't able to adapt, et cetera, et cetera. What do you think leaders should be thinking about differently in this remote context right now? Do you have like sort of the key pieces, or are you guys coming up with, wow, here are the 10 things that you have to do as a manager? I don't want to put any words in your mouth.
Yeah. No, I mean, so we're being asked to teach this a lot right now. And it's interesting because it took a long time for people to accept that this is not like a weeks long.
Not new normal. This is just we're normal now.
This is going to be the norm for a while now. And so, I think we've been trying to move with our companies to understand, number one, I think that they have to have a realistic point of view as to where we're at and what's going on. So this is a crisis situation. This is not like a well-planned, we're going to all work remote, GitLabs type situation where there's intentionality about what they're doing. So I think that's number one. And so part of what we're trying to work with each of our leaders on is to really understand sort of where is their company in terms of the communication skills that they have, in terms of the type of leadership that they do, to really understand how qualified, where they are sort of in the learning spectrum of being remote, because this is going to continue for a while. So if so, like, let's do as well as we can about it, right? A lot of things that we're teaching right now are pretty fundamental things. I mean, they're things like thinking through what are your new set of norms as an organization and as a team. And they may vary team by team, but your new normal cannot be that everyone wakes up in the morning at 7 a.m., gets on their computer, starts working, takes 5 minutes to eat a quick lunch, a quick breakfast, a quick dinner, and is still on at 10 o'clock at night.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, that's just not a sustainable, healthy reason. No, nobody wants to live like that, and I don't think any leader wants to live like that. So I think that there's a really interesting challenge for leaders right now about being optimistic, but also being really truthful, because if you aren't combining those two things when you're leading your team, you're never going to be able to take a team forward and really operate at the level that you need to operate.
Give me truthful. Break that down a little bit for me. Like, what does that mean? What does that mean? Is that I've talked a lot on the podcast and other places about, I call it being human, right? Maybe not being truthful. It's just, things are going to go wrong. Tech is always changing, so therefore it will break regularly. Just sort of, having that wherewithal and that empathy and that resilience. Is that what you're talking about in truthfulness, or is it a different kind of?
So, I mean, I think it's also about, like, there's a truthfulness and there's a lot of unknowns right now. And I think we have to be honest about that. We don't know if there's going to be a vaccine in a few weeks or in a few months. We don't know if even once we have a vaccine, if it's going to be able to roll out in an efficient way. Mm-hmm. We don't know when we're going to go back to being in person. And so if this is the new normal, we don't know what that's going to mean. Mm-hmm. And so, but at the same time, I think there are some things that we do know. So I think it's very reasonable for most companies to plan for nobody's going back forward before the end of the year, right? Or if you don't absolutely have to be in person. And obviously there are plenty of jobs out there which unfortunately have that requirement and that need. So, I think you can be super honest about what precautions are being taken and how effective they are. So I think that there are a lot of things about truth. And I think there's also truthfulness about, we all are going through this together. Nobody knows what's going on, and all of us are suffering. Like, it's hard.
Mhm.
You know, you have kids running around, you don't have your sort of normal life and everything else. Like, I think it's, to some extent, you know, you want to be optimistic, but I think as a good leader, like, you also have to be a little bit vulnerable.
Mm.
Like, what's going on in your life that's like, oh man, this is scaring me, this is stressing me out. Like, those things, like, if you're not honest with your team, I don't see how you can ever expect them to be honest with you.
Love it. I love it. That's absolutely fantastic. Has any of that, have you heard from the companies that you work with or the students,
Yeah.
has any of that truthfulness conversation revolved around, look, we've actually seen some interesting shifts, right? So maybe we don't need the 4 levels in the building anymore, and maybe we do just hot desks and like fundamental changes in teams and, you know, what's necessary for physical plant and, you know, those. Are you having those conversations too?
We're seeing a little bit of it. I think probably the thing we're seeing a little bit more is more around like what products and services are successful in this new normal. I think we're seeing some somewhat dramatic things. We actually had a lease signed for our first like campus space, if you will, a couple of classrooms, that sort of thing, that we canceled at the beginning of April because we said this just doesn't really make sense for us, given the circumstances, and looking forward to what was going on and being really realistic about it. So I think I think the most truthful conversations are starting to happen now because 6 months in, I think people have realized this is not a temporary situation. This is a significant change.
So if I'm listening to the podcast right now, I'm a student. Do I have to be in Mexico? How do I get in? Like what? How do I get in touch with you? You know, like this sounds like an exciting program. Like what are the next? What do I do?
You probably do need to speak Spanish, so that is the one limitation I will put around it.
Okay.
We do teach in Spanish, our master's program, the Compass program. Our enterprise programs we teach both in Spanish and English. It's actually a very good deal for U.S.-based companies because the dollar is very strong against the peso right now, to be perfectly honest. But overall,
killer value for money.
So I say that as a somewhat pained peso owner right now. But I think you know, for us, our master's program is application based, so we are selective about the students we let in, and we want, you know, cohorts to really be strong and for students to be able to learn from each other. Those are real priorities to us. But overall, it's not a particularly onerous process. You don't have to take the GMAT or anything like that, for example. But overall, yeah, we start cohorts of the master's program basically 4 times a year. Next class starts in the next few days. So really anybody who'd apply right now would probably be applying for our January cohort. But yeah, it's really exciting. It's been a real pleasure, really impressive working with the students, the mentors. So all of our classes are taught by, I don't think I mentioned this, what we call mentors who are professionals in their world.
I was just going to say, that was kind of my next question is, you know, okay, we've talked about classes. We talked about, you know, you've got a tech focus in their master's program. In the enterprise program, there's a leadership piece. What, because of your connections with Mexican companies and enterprises, or maybe global companies, global brands, do students get that opportunity, say like internships, or do cohorts go out and do like a case study, or like what's the real world connection that they get to go out and sort of really dig into real world problems that are happening?
No, it's a great question. So for us, I mean, the Compass students, the undergraduate program that we just launched, they'll all be interning starting January. So we're working on those placements right now, mainly honestly within our collective network. It's a pretty amazing network between our professors, our alumni, and everyone else. So what we've done with our students, and I apologize if you're getting small voices, the work from home reality, right?
It's a human experience.
Everyone understands.
You're outside the door right now in my office.
Exactly. But I think, you know, I think for us, the real world is actually for our master's students is in their day-to-day, because just about all of them are working full time. they're literally taking and applying their work to the masters. Sometimes we're seeing them change jobs either during or after their masters. More than 90% of them see a pretty significant increase in both salary and responsibilities during the time that they spend in their masters, which is pretty amazing. We actually kind of call it the paradox of the Masters in Business Technology, is that sometimes it increases so much that it becomes hard to finish the degree. So you're on mute right now. But.
Well, shoot, I'm you say, hey, I'm making so much money that I gotta go.
I mean, these are really good problems to have, right? That your responsibilities and your salaries are increasing are privileged problems to have. But overall, we obviously try and make sure that everybody who can finishes the degree and goes forward. But yeah, they're applying it day to day to what they do, all of their learnings, and then others obviously do sometimes change positions, take higher level jobs or jobs with new companies that they're really excited to be at during the degree, and there again, their master's applies to every single day to what they do.
Awesome. Final question I have for you. I've been asking everybody on the show, if you look forward, in your crystal ball, 6 months, even 12 months from now, is there any significant, change that you are preparing for, or something that's coming down the pipe that you're excited about? Either maybe you guys are thinking of a new course or a new program that you're going to be releasing in 2021, or a piece of tech that you think is going to be a real game changer. Anything that you see, kind of coming down the pipe that you want to tell everybody about?
And I think we're going to continue to see a lot of growth in our masters and that online ability and having a good experience online. That really interactive, lively discussions. Not feeling like you're missing out just because we're online. But honestly, I think that the bigger change we're going to see is actually around our undergraduate program. Right now we have 18 just spectacular students in this program, and it's really interesting because so many of them were really hesitant about going back to university this fall, because it's a really different experience than what you sort of build up your whole life to have as a university experience. And I think one of the things we're seeing great demand for, and that we think may be a big part of this, is that right now, I don't think Latin American universities are doing a good enough job in terms of the career skills that they're teaching their students. They're not, building out great resumes. They're not learning interview skills. They're not having, the job boards and everything else that I got used to be honest. Being at University of Chicago, we had an amazing career services department. And so, while that exists to some degree, it's just not at the level I think it could be. And so I think one of the things I see as great potential over the next couple of years is, as students rethink college a little bit and rethink that university experience, how do they complement what they're doing sort of academically with all the other skills they need to build a career? Whether it's thinking about what they really want to do to have a rewarding career, and instead of just taking the first job because your mom's sister had a connection to company X or job Y, that you're really thoughtful about what you want out of your career, and that you learn then the skills that you need to go along with that. Whether it's being a good, well-rounded professional, whether it's the interview skills you need to do a consulting case interview or something else. But I think you're going to see a lot more of that preparedness, but also that self-reflection on where do I go with my career.
Super cool. Kristin, this has been a fantastic conversation. I love the humanness of it, and I hope that you and I actually get to meet live for a coffee sometime.
Same here.
But thank you so much, and I look forward to following up with you, let's say 6 months or so, and see where Collective Academy is going.
That'd be amazing. Thank you. Really appreciate it, Steve.
Thanks again for tuning into today's episode of the eLearning Podcast. If you like what you've learned today in this episode, I encourage you to either follow us or subscribe to us on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube. And please do share this episode with 1 or 2 of your colleagues or friends. Also, I just want to remind you that you can level up your online learning game with all of the information that's available at the eLearning Success Summit. You can get your free ticket at elearningsuccesssummit.com. And finally, you can also stay up to date on everything that's important, all the news and the resources for e-learning professionals at lmspulse.com. Get our free newsletter by just going to lmspulse.com today. Thanks again.